I do believe happiness is important, or at least, you can't always be happy, and that's not what life is about, but peace is the word I'm looking for. And ever since I was young, I've been looking for some kind of peace. Chasing it, in fact. Wanting a peaceful life, a family, I always loved houses when I was younger, like 20 or so. Thought I was going to be a real estate investor. But I also wanted to travel the world. And I kind of wanted to explore where that deep desire to travel is coming from. Despite the fact that I want peace and I want to settle down and I want to be happy, I still feel this urge to go out and explore the world. But a lot of people complain about their situation in America. And I just wanted to address something that I think is kind of pernicious, to use a big word, but it's the idea that you just can't make it. And this is also kind of to encourage people, including myself, because I've been there. I grew up poor and always looking for peace because my home life was just chaotic. It was a wreck. You'll see a lot of people on social media saying, oh, you should be able to, live on a full-time wage, no matter what that wage is, right? Just work for somebody full-time and you ought to be able to make enough money. I spend around $2,000 a month. Okay, that's, if you work 40 hours a week and take the minimum wage, say the West Virginia state minimum wage, which is where I'm from, $8.75 an hour. Probably nobody really makes that anymore, but to be fair, we'll use that to be generous. Make around $1,200 a month. I could almost make it, even with my lifestyle now. $2,000 is, I'm willing to bet, pretty low compared to most people these days in America. But for the sake of argument, I could pretty much make it. I could cut back on a few things, bring my $2,000 a month spending total, apartment bills, everything included, down to like $1,000 a month, especially if I wasn't a homeowner. But people don't realize just how little you could probably live on if you really committed yourself to that. The problem is not these people's ability to live, they really just want to be competitive with the people around them and make enough money to be on par with the rest of society. Like, I get that, desire, but if you bring everyone up to the same level of standard of living, then there's still going to be people left behind. Because not everybody can be at the top, and if you try to make everybody equal, then you just work your whole life to tear people down, basically. And what good does that do you? You can live for so much less in a foreign country, and that might make you happier, because money does help your ease of living, peace of mind to some extent, up to a certain point, And past that point, it makes no difference at all, the more money you make. There's nothing wrong with wanting peace and happiness, and just I want to stress to people that you can afford to live in America, you know, which is kind of one of the reasons that I'm still here, because I've been able to make enough money that I'm actually saving a good amount each month. And this is what allows me to finance my trips abroad, even though I can't do it like every month, of course. And I can't really see myself living abroad yet, even though I've done it before, which, you know, it sounds kind of silly, right? But, you know, I used to teach English, and I didn't really enjoy that job. And, you know, there's lots of ways in which you can be taken advantage of if you actually work overseas. So, at my age, you know, I'm looking for something a little bit different than what I had before, which is just a regular teaching job at a school. And you get taken advantage of if you work in another country. And, you know, there's always somebody looking to take advantage of you anywhere. But I decided I wanted to get out of that mindset that I just need to continue working to finance things, and hopefully I can retire and, you know, get out of America. And another reason that I want to do that, even though I have this lifestyle where I can afford to live here, is there just love doesn't seem to exist in America anymore. And I say this as someone who isn't hopeless. I recognize that I've had options over the years, and times that I could have settled down. And well, I mean, nobody wants to settle, right? But we all do to some extent. Like I said, it's not a lack of ability to get into some kind of a relationship with some kind of woman somewhere. You know, sure, I mean, yeah, there's lots of girls who would love to accept me, you know, not that I'm anything special. And like, I've been rejected plenty of times too. I'm not trying to brag here and pump myself up, and you know, a lot of guys get on camera, you know, and it's the most annoying thing to me. They talk about, or they're just talking in a group of their friends, you know, guys just standing around talking about, oh, you know, I had to let my girl go, such a shame, you know, I just couldn't fulfill her needs because she's so needy, right? And I'm just so above it all. I could have any woman I wanted, right? But, you know, I'm recognizing that I'm not that kind of guy. And I think a lot of the guys who talk like that aren't that kind of guy either. Even though they talk a good game. And we all know that's bullshit. You know, the guys standing in your friend circle listening to you talk about, well, oh, I had to leave this girl, right? Like, I didn't want anything to do with this chick. You know, went on a date with her and she was all over me, but I was like, yeah, get off me, you know, B-word. But we all know that's bullshit. People talk, and we know why people are talking like that. But guys, you gotta get honest with yourselves. Like, you're not all that. And I know that I'm not all that. Like, nor do I really want to be. You know, it takes a certain amount of competitiveness, and for me it's just not there. It's like, like I said, I just want a peaceful life. And maybe I'll sit down under this tree. Don't want to disturb any of the dead here. Right. Time to enjoy a refreshing drink. Talk about life for a little bit. So I was kind of talking about modern men and the way that we expect so much, and we think so highly of ourselves, and in the process we overestimate our value, and at the same time that we do that, it also shouldn't be this hard to live and to find love in the world, or in America I should say, because there's so many better options out there. Sure, you could find someone in America, there's lots of men, but there's an exodus going on, and there's a good reason for that, which is that even men like myself, who, while we couldn't get any girl we wanted, probably we could get, we are marketable in the dating world, right? But just the kind of woman that you're gonna find here, she's probably, a little overweight, and just the mindset that we have here isn't conducive to marriage anymore. The expectations on men are super high. And look, like, I'm not complaining. I can't stress that enough. I'm not complaining about any certain group of people. I believe the reason that it's so hard to find love or to live in America in general is because of the wealth that already exists around us. It's nobody's fault necessarily, it's just the way the country developed. We became wealthy, and now we're sitting on this mountain of wealth, and once you have everything you need in life, it's like, why would you still be looking for that? You're always reaching for something bigger and better, and where does it end? Eventually there's a point of diminishing returns, where you marry, and your partner is expected to develop your life in a way that helps your socioeconomic status. I get it, but both of you already live in America, and if you're already middle class, you have everything in life that you could ever need. So that's most people in America. We have everything we could ever need. Defining need in a way that actually makes sense to the rest of the world, like the Philippines, where the standard of living is so much lower. We have everything we could ever need. And why do you think, the dating market in places like the Philippines is so hot right now? It's because, what are you even looking for in a marriage if it's not? And I get that, you can marry for spiritual reasons, and I think that's a great thing, but most people aren't even thinking about that here. you know, it's part of our culture, I guess, that just being so commercialized, we feel like the point of life is to make things comfortable. Even if you're a Christian, you might not always be thinking about yourself, but you're always thinking about making the people around you more and more comfortable, and having to do less and accomplish less. Where does that get you? It eventually leads to ruin. So I think the point of going out there and finding love, it's a noble thing. If you, like, no matter where you go, it doesn't have to be a third world country. Could be, and there's lots of people who are not living third world lifestyles in third world countries. But if you want to go abroad and you can find a more meaningful life, you can find definitely a cheaper life, but you can also find better opportunities for love and family and relationships and stuff like that. And your lifestyle could, like, and I want to say this because I've been abroad and I've lived abroad for several years. I decided the kind of lifestyle that I was living, although it was fun, it isn't really what I wanted, and that's my fault. I take full responsibility for the fact that it didn't turn out like I wanted it to. But I've come to the conclusion since then that just having that perspective and being able to live in other countries, it's hard to, and I keep beating myself over the head for this, thinking like, oh, maybe it's my perspective that's the problem. But I feel like my life was better, and I had so much more opportunity for friends. I could save money, and I had so many more opportunities for friends and relationships, even though my bosses would still take advantage of me, and I would get ripped off because I didn't have any legal protection as a worker in another country, and the contracts were meaningless. Even though things like that happened to me, I still feel that need to get out there, and like my life would be so much more meaningful there. I just cannot ignore the things that I'm seeing in America, that our lives are, like, yes, we're blessed, but at the same time, this is not the way that life is meant to be lived. And I can recognize that because I know that it's not all about me. Find somebody who deserves your time and your companionship, and who really needs it, because marriage was meant to be a need. If you don't need to be married, then why are you married? It doesn't make any sense. Just because you felt like it, or you wanted a man, you wanted a woman, like marriage cannot be based on simply desire alone, and in any meaningful way. You cannot fulfill yourself in any relationship by simply desiring the relationship. It has to mean something more than that. And that's why I say there's a need there, whether it be a need for fulfillment, it could be a spiritual need, or some other kind of need. Maybe you're helping someone to raise their socioeconomic status who actually deserves it from another country, and that's completely fine. So my question is, why aren't guys doing this more? For one, we're so stuck in the mindset that we need to make it in this society where we're from, or we're worthless, basically. And that the best option we have is here, in the society where we're from. When really, you know, there's lots of obstacles, like I said, like money, that are keeping us from moving abroad, and keeping me from moving abroad permanently. But but I've come to the realization since moving back to America, that my life was so much more fulfilling, even though it wasn't necessarily more comfortable. It was a lot more fulfilling, and I felt like the relationships that I the relationships that I had were a lot more meaningful. Here, it just feels like a competition, and everything. We don't need anything. We're so self-sufficient anymore that what more could you possibly hope to gain in the world by just improving your socioeconomic status in America, where everybody's socioeconomic status is already pretty high compared to the rest of the world? It's kind of a pointless game to play. So like, what I want to say is, there's nothing wrong with going abroad, and I think it comes from the realization that there is meaning in providing a lifestyle for somebody else who maybe couldn't afford that lifestyle to begin with, as long as they deserve it, and that's up to you to determine, but between you and God, I should say. But for me, it comes from the realization that the owner of this world is God. It's not simply a competition between people, and like, if I didn't believe in God, life in general would feel so meaningless. And like, for instance, I lost my dad like 3 years ago, and it seems like yesterday he was living and having goals and dreams of his own, and that probably was well before his death, when he was actually still married to my mom, because after that he was going downhill quick. But after he finally passed, it just brings a new sense of just how meaningless life can seem if you don't believe in something greater than yourself. And it would seem like, to me, it would seem like a competition. Like, you're just competing for resources. You have only a short time to do it. So in order to gain those resources, you need to compete with other people. You need to be the best. And people realize that you have to operate within society, or else other people are just going to tear you down. But at the same time, the goal is to enrich themselves. I don't see it that way, because I believe in God. And I think that's part of the reason I want to go abroad, and part of the reason that I think happiness can be found abroad. Not just for me, but for many men and women too. there's a lot of, I realize there's a lot of, life isn't always easy for us here. And sometimes that's our own fault. Like I said, we'll kind of blame the world for not supporting our debt issues, our debt problems when we have car payments. Like, there's always ways that you could live within your means, but we refuse to do that as a society. Because we need debt in order to compete. And that's why I bring this up, where we're just constantly complaining about our standard of living, and like, oh, I can't even afford to live anymore. Well, number one, you can afford to live if you really commit yourself to that. And number two, your perspective is way off. Because you go to places like the Philippines and you see what it's like to really live, to really what a living wage really looks like. It's not like what we have here. And you get a sense on the things, like, if you wanted to, you could live under a bridge voluntarily and you would still be able to survive. And granted, I don't think anybody should do that, and I don't think anybody should have to do that. But if you think about it, you could possibly do it. But in a society where everyone has everything they could ever need, and we're busy just kind of trying to regulate the way society is so that we can all stay in our own isolated little boxes and only see people that we want to see ever, and never have any kind of random confrontations or random meetings with other people in public. Like, we're so busy trying to encase ourselves in our own privacy, and it's become like a prison, basically. So our wealth builds us into a prison. And like I said, that's just kind of the way life is, It's not the worst thing that could happen to you. We are kind of blessed to be from America, but at the same time, why would you want to stay here? If you think about it, like, what is there to be found once you've already managed to support yourself in a place like this? And part of the thing that makes us so stressed out about it is the fact that we're not living within our means, and we know that if the banks actually called our cards, or whoever we lended us the money that we use to buy things and that we're indebted to, if they decided, to take it back, which, theoretically speaking, if we had to pay that money back, which it has happened, it won't necessarily happen, but if it does, you would be out of luck, and then you would really know what it means to have a living wage, because you would be forced to support yourself on peanuts, basically, or on a wage that is typical for a place like the Philippines or China. We find so much to complain about, and like I said, there's never going to be a shortage of things to complain about, no matter where you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you have, because it's built into our DNA. We always look for the next best thing. And this is one of my, pleasures, one of my little splurges, I guess you could say. You know, I like these drinks. Um, and I would have a lot to learn because, I know what it's like to live in a foreign country, but I don't really know what it's like to live like somebody from a foreign country, if that makes sense. Because even if I go there, I can afford to do basically anything I want, and I have a lot of privileges as a foreigner that are afforded to me, in most interactions with people there, simply because I'm from America. Um, but if you really decided to live like someone from that country, would your life be less happy? I tend to think not. Because there's meaning in building and finding things and doing things with your life. And, like I said, I, I attribute all this meaning to the fact that God has control over this earth and it is ultimately His. And we're just kind of borrowing what we have. Once you have reached basically the top of the food chain, you're from America, you're from one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and this could apply if you're from, a European country or some other wealthy country, like, I don't know, Kuwait, um, or Saudi Arabia, but there's people who live a rich lifestyle all over the world. And once you've made it to that point, and once your society is so inundated with wealth that you have no perspective anymore, like, why wouldn't you try to find meaning in building something better for somebody else? That's one of the reasons that you might want to find a family abroad. And I think that's a noble thing to do. It's not all just about going and giving your wealth, sharing your wealth with the world, giving to charity, and that's all great. But at the same time, how can you build something meaningful if you live this insulated life that we have in America, and you're not going beyond your boundaries? You never get out of your comfort zone. And just realize that how big the comfort zone is here, and you're not meant to make it in that comfort zone. You have to get out of the comfort zone in order to find meaning and to develop something that's really worthwhile in this life. And the Western women, I guess they can complain all they want about men who go abroad and search for love in other countries, but we're just doing what God designed us to do, which is to make something truly better in the world. And not to say that you couldn't do that in America, but when everybody's taken care of basically by daddy government, and the creditors who always lend them money whenever they need it, and it just gets them in more trouble. It's kind of a disaster of our own making at that point. And there's something to be said for people who try to sort those messes out, but at the same time, to truly develop something where nobody even has a concept of the wealth that we have here, I think that's a noble thing. And if you try to find somebody who really deserves that, and not to say that everybody does just because they're from a poor country, if you try to find a wife basically from a foreign country, and it turns out she's a scammer, don't do that. But you have to realize at some point that it might never happen for you, but that doesn't mean you don't try. So I think it's a noble thing to go out there and look and try to find meaning in your life, and always keep your eyes toward God, because the ultimate, that is the ultimate meaning in life, to kind of demonstrate. And excuse me, this is kind of what I'm trying to show on this channel, even though for the time being I'm still here in America, you know, trying to develop myself into something better. It's not for you know, the vain reasons that we normally do it here in America. Like, oh, I'm just, you know, constantly improving myself to the point where I'm better than everybody else. Well, that's not the point. Like, it's not about me. It's about loving the world, basically, enough to find, like, it's not all about relationships either. Like, it's, you know, loving the world enough to go out there and look for meaning in other places, and actually live as a global citizen, as a citizen of the world, rather than, you know, like, God and country. I think that whole saying that Christians use here in America, I think you're serving two masters with that slogan. Like, we need to cut out the country part and basically follow God's 10 Commandments and live to serve Him, and show people by demonstrating that this is His earth, that, you know, and that there is meaning, you know, beyond just enriching ourselves and you know, the people that we care about, because they enrich us, you know. If a secular lifestyle, that's really what it all boils down to. And we need to have that perspective of living abroad in order to really realize what loving God is really all about. And finding happiness abroad is, you know, it's not only about you. I think it is actually a noble thing to do. You know, it's not the only noble thing you can do. I want to make that clear. You know, there's a lot of meaning to be had in America, sure. But for people who you know, at a certain point in their lives, they feel like they're, you know, if you were going to change the whole system, you would have done it by now. Like, I'm one of those guys, you know, and if you don't, like, I don't feel like I'm going to change fix the problems that I see, you know, in our society, or change society, change the government, change politics. I think politics is basically a hopeless endeavor in any country. Governments have never had the interests of people in mind. And how is it possible to even do that, to support the interests of all people? You can only do that if you serve God. Because God is the only one who knows the interests of all people. And He's tried to tell us this. Like, if everybody truly lived for God, like, how much better would this world be? And I can't pretend to sit here and be like, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want, and like, yeah, we can all be happy, you know. It doesn't matter. Like, I choose to be a Christian, but if that's not for you, then that's totally cool. But actually, I think there is, I think it is better to be a Christian than to not be one. And, you know, this is going back to my childhood, basically, where it was so chaotic, and I felt that there was no meaning in my life if I didn't, if I felt that God wasn't real, I would have dropped out a long time ago, you know. I'm saying that in more ways than one, but you can make out of that what you will. But that's what makes life worth living. And for most people, for most normal people who don't feel like they're gonna, rock the boat in America and change this whole system of going into debt to finance a lifestyle that we wouldn't be able to live otherwise, and just being so comfortable all the time, like, that's not what it's about. Like, get out there, get out of the country if you can. And I want to talk about how you can do that too, by living a lifestyle. No, I feel something tickling me in my throat. But living a lifestyle that you can afford to live so that you can actually save money. And how to do that, I mean, you don't just stash it under your mattress, obviously. There's ways that you can put your money to work for you. Like for me, I still need to work to have enough. I do have some sources of, I guess you could call it passive income. It's not enough to survive on, but along with my savings, I can afford to take these trips abroad. And like I've been saying, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and it's actually it's a noble calling if that is what you want to do. Not only if that's what you want to do, but if that's what you feel like you need to do in order to be happy. There's nothing wrong with wanting happiness, and it's actually noble to seek that happiness. And for me, like, just being abroad and living abroad, I can never take that perspective away. It's part of me now. Like, I know what it's like, and I know what my life would be like in other countries, and I feel that it's better if I seek happiness in other places rather than just trying to, insulate myself and live this comfortable lifestyle in America. I choose to take a lower standard of living so that I can afford to help other people from other countries and forge relationships in other countries with people in other countries so as to hopefully improve their lives. And that's how I share wealth with the world. And part of what I'm doing here with this channel is trying to document that. I'm not worried so much about the fame or the attention that I get, and I thank you very much to all my subscribers, but I'm not really worried about, every video being eye-catching and me being the most enthralling presenter and everything like that. My part of what I want to do is get out there and demonstrate what I'm talking about, which is going abroad, finding meaning, loving God, and helping people. By the way you live your life. It's not all about charity. It's about actually living to support yourself and also support the people around you. And sometimes you have to just change where you are rather than who you surround yourself with in the place where you happen to be at the time. If you happen to be from America or Germany or United Kingdom, you don't have to stay there. Those countries have already been developed. Like, why not expand your horizons? If even if you make, it doesn't take that much, like I've been saying. Even if you make, let's say $50,000 a year, maybe even less, you can still afford to take trips abroad. You might even be able to move abroad. It really doesn't cost as much as you might think. And, it's something I kind of struggle with, but even if doing that makes it hard to compete with people in America in terms of your standard of living, like, having that standard of living, when we've seen it, it's hard to let go of that. It's like a sugar addiction, it's hard to stop wanting things, you know, that America has to offer when you're from there. But, you know, it is possible. You can go live that lifestyle, and you can actually, it's not that hard to afford traveling and living abroad if you actually know what you're doing. So I hope to kind of demonstrate that lifestyle, even though I'm still working and supporting myself in America, because there's certain things I could do in America that I couldn't do in other countries, like owning property and supporting myself that way. So, you know, although I'm still a work in progress, you know, and that takes a lot of strength for people to admit that, I think. But if I were truly all that I could be, I don't think I would be here anymore. And that feels like a powerful thing to say. So get out there, guys. You can find a life worth living abroad. In the Philippines, Thailand, wherever you might want to go. I have suggestions, you know, for places that I think certain places are better than others for living. And, you know, the kind of life that you could find abroad and the kind of people you can find abroad you just can't find in America anymore. You know, if they're down and out, if they're poor and you could help them in some way, like there's probably still going to be on drugs, you know, later, and people in other countries, they can't afford things like drugs. Here, our standard of living is so high that even the poor people are obese. Like, I've seen, like, even driving here today, you know, I saw people on the side of the road just with holding a sign, and they're fat. Like not just overweight, they're obese. Like, you know, huh? Like, like you're not starving, obviously, you know? And that's kind of what I mean when I say people who deserve it. You know, you have to associate with people who deserve it. And for most people, for a lot of people at least, it's not going to be here in America. You're not going to find that here. You know, if you're a godly person, you know, you can go to places with relatively few Christians and still find some of them and live a meaningful life that way, and, you know, proselytizing and getting that out there. That's not necessarily what this is about, but just living your life in another country where you can support people and still be part of a Christian community, I feel is very important. I just want to say that is a noble cause. So anyway, that'll about do it for today. Thank you guys for listening. You know, it's been a great day here, for me at least. I hope you're having a good day wherever you are. I hope you stay blessed, and that you continue to look for your options, and hopefully I can help by making these videos. And I do plan to go abroad and show a bit more of, you know, what it's like to live over there, and, you know, how you can afford to do that if you happen to be kind of stuck in some financial situation. Like, if you're willing to take the steps, you know, you can get there. And I would like to show that as well with what I'm doing here on YouTube. So thank you guys for listening. If this has helped you at all, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, I'll see you guys later. Peace.